Well, Halloween is right around the corner. So, in the spirit of spooky season, I wanted to do kind of an episode on something that no one really wants to talk about fear. Because any kind of pain, but especially chronic pain, can be absolutely terrifying, right? The fear itself can lead to so many sleepless nights and catastrophic thoughts and ruminating about the past and sending you into this sort of toxic spiral that is filled with negative self talk and so much uncertainty. I feel like uncertainty is like one of the biggest burdens when it comes to pain, and it leads to so much fear. And maybe you try not to let the fear control your thoughts. And most of the women that I talk to with stubborn physical pain have certain fears that control their behaviors, not just their thoughts, but their behaviors. In other words, they cope with the fears in ways that can actually make the pain worse. And so I want to start off by just kind of defining fear and the role that it plays in pain, because sometimes we don't recognize our fears, right? We don't think of it as fears. You may not call it fear, but you may call it something else. You may call it anxiety. You may call it worry. You may call it something else. But some people are sometimes in a little bit of denial about having fear because they are so used to pushing through and overdoing it and just grinning and bearing it. So we don't see ourselves as fearful. Those people who tend to push through and overdo it don't see themselves as fearful individuals, but the fear is still there. And we just see it pop up in other ways. So it may not be consuming your thoughts, but it can be controlling your behaviors. And that is sometimes not the best thing because it can make pain worse. And so, what I've seen, what I'm talking about with fear, what I've seen with people with chronic pain, some of the most common fears that people with chronic pain have, first and foremost, has to do with the pain itself, fear of the pain, right? Fear of flare ups, fear of sometimes movement, right? Sometimes people don't fear movement, sometimes people do, but mostly the pain. So there's the fear of reinjury, there's the fear of the pain getting worse, and then the loss of function and the loss of independence that's associated with that. So there's oftentimes this like all consuming fear of losing independence. I also see this happening all the time where people have this fear of doing something wrong, either as it relates to their movements, right? Or like how much they do. So doing something wrong in terms of the wrong movement or the wrong activity that could injure themselves or cause more pain, for example, or doing something wrong in terms of the wrong treatments. Right. So I think that there's a layer of fear around that for a lot of folks. And then beyond that, I think deeper than that, there's deeper fears that kind of come up the longer that you have pain. So a lot of folks end up fearing social situations, and there's that fear of being a burden or feeling like a burden. There's a fear of disappointing others and letting them down, right? There can be a fear of sort of intimacy or physical closeness. You don't want to get close because you fear the pain, right? There's that fear of the isolation. And so on one hand, there's that fear of being in social situations and physical closeness, but on the other hand, there's that fear of isolation, right? Of being alone and being judged. There's that fear of not being believed. There's a fear of doctor visits, going to certain doctor visits and being judged and not being believed and being misled or being neglected or dismissed or essentially gaslit. Like what you're feeling is not true. We don't believe you, right? I think another really big fear is that fear of missing something. What I mean by that is that can be either a fear that the doctors are missing something, like in terms of some sort of diagnosis, like they're not investigating deep enough, right? So they must be missing something. There has to be more going on, right? And then there's also the fear of missing something in terms of the treatments. Right. So like I'm afraid of not doing the right treatments. I'm afraid that we're missing something in terms of the right treatments. Maybe there's something else out there. Right. So on one hand, there's the fear that we're missing something. And then on the other hand, because of the amount of times that you've probably hit dead ends and that you've tried new treatments and not getting results, there's now a new fear of trying new treatments, right? There's that skepticism, there's that hesitation, and it's sort of this like protective mechanism from letting you get hurt again. And so that becomes another fear. And then, some other fears that pop up. Sometimes we talk about this, with my clients, but there's this fear of job loss. There's this fear of financial instability. There's obviously the fear of being more and more disabled. There's the fear of how it impacts our relationships. There's a fear of not being present. And so I could probably go on and on and on and give these different examples. But as you can see, even if we tell ourselves like I'm not a fearful person, right? I just push through, I'm super tough. I speak to so many women who are like this, where you are kind of an overdo it doer, a push through it kind of a person. You're just like, I'm gonna grin and bear it. I'm gonna put a smile on, even though it hurts. Those type of people don't necessarily always recognize that these fears are there. And so it's important that we talk about them, number one, and how these fears impact us, not just from a mental standpoint and how these fears can control your thoughts and like consume your mind and be really, really negative, toxic place. That's not what I'm going to be talking about today, but rather how these fears drive our behaviors and how some of those behaviors can actually be making things worse. So I want to dive into this. And what I want you to imagine as you're listening is I want you to imagine just the visual of a cycle, like two arrows pointing in a circle. On one side of the circle is fear, and then on the other side of the circle is pain. Okay. And so what we have is this sort of toxic cycle where fear, any kind of fear, right? It doesn't have to be even pain related fear, but fear can aggravate or worsen pain, physical pain, and pain can, of course, worsen fear. So it's kind of this snowball effect. So the fear itself acts as an amplifier. And this isn't anything new. This isn't anything that I invented. Of course, you can go read all about the fear avoidance model, but yes, fear does influence pain and pain influences fear, and it is a toxic cycle. We do know this. However, what I would propose to you is that overactive pain pathways, the pathways themselves that involve the nerves in your body, it involves the spinal cord, it involves processing in the brain. Those overactive pain pathways do cause and contribute to pain itself. And those overactive pain pathways do cause and contribute to the fear itself. So, really, when we look at this cycle, both of these are symptoms. Pain and fear are both symptoms of overactive pain pathways. So we have this cycle, right? Both of these symptoms are making each other worse. And so hopefully you can kind of visualize this diagram, okay? Overactive pain pathways cause pain and fear. Both of these are symptoms, and these symptoms can worsen each other, okay? And so oftentimes in our care, we tend to focus on addressing the symptom of pain, right? And anytime we focus on the symptom of pain, we end up sort of masking pain, right? So if the focus is how do we address pain or how do we lessen pain, the answer tends to be we medicate, right? We use ice, we use e-stim, we do all of these sorts of band-aid remedies that don't actually address the issue. Because again, when we look at that, when we think about that diagram, we're just treating the symptom. And again, of course, a lot of treatments address sort of the physical aspects of pain. So, strengthening, stretching, working on range of motion and joint mobility or joint stability. And all of that is important too, because it does contribute to pain. But those treatments, again, do not address the overactive pain pathways. So again, the pain is going to continue, that fear is going to continue. So sort of this question comes up like, okay, so if we can address the pain and that's not working, then maybe we can come at it from another angle and maybe we can address the fear. And that's what a lot of treatment approaches these days tend to focus on, is kind of addressing that fight or flight response, right? The fear response, addressing the fears themselves. So trying to get out of this cycle of fear in terms of manipulating your thoughts, right? So they'll have you do thinking exercises where you're trying to promote this sense of safety, sending yourself safety messages, telling yourself that you're not injured, that your body is safe, that this pain is not an indication of injury. And then also doing other techniques to sort of calm the body down and get out of that fight or flight response. So doing things like breathing drills and meditations and journaling and things like that, right? So it's a much more like we can come directly at the symptom of fear. But again, what is actually causing that fear? Oftentimes, it still involves the overactive pain pathways, and we have to address that as well. And so rather than kind of coming at it from this angle of like, well, how do we interrupt this cycle and interrupt the fear itself? I want to sort of take a different approach. And not just try to manipulate your thoughts, but look at it from an even more different angle. And so what happens when we have these fears? What are some of the behaviors that come up when we have some of these fears, right? What do we do when we have these fears: fear of the pain, fear of flare-ups, fear of movement, fear of things getting worse, fear that we're missing something, etc. So what I've seen is there are really three big things that come up as a response to these fears. So what do we do when we have these fears? We do these three big things. Number one, we avoid. Number two, we try to control. And number three, we push through. So number one, people avoid, right? So again, if we have fear, we tend to avoid the things that we're afraid of. So you may withdraw from social situations because you're afraid of having these discussions, of having to cancel, of having to sit in a chair and possibly flare yourself up, having to go home early, having to work through all the accommodations, right? So we tend to, just as an example, avoid social situations. Another example would be to avoid certain movements or certain activities that have caused pain in the past. So, or have the tendency to over rest or rest too much. We have this mindset of rest is best, or we immobilize, we put on the brace, we put on the boot, or we try to stay off of it, right? So we avoid. That is one of the number one responses to having these fears. We, as a way to cope with the fears, we avoid, right? And so for some, this can help. It is, again, it is a coping mechanism, but it's not the best coping mechanism. Why? Because when we avoid, it not only makes us weaker and possibly depressed and, just decreases our physical ability because it's like, if you don't use it, you lose it sort of thing. But when we avoid, it also makes those overactive pain pathways worse. What do I mean by that? Well, one of the issues with overactive pain pathways is that the brain and body it's almost like they stop speaking the same language. And when we avoid, it causes that change in the sensory cortex to become worse. And it is promoting that language disconnect. So it's almost like making it harder for the brain to speak the same language as the body. And so the messages continue to get misinterpreted. So the body is screaming up at the brain's getting those messages and it's going, I don't know what you're saying. And so when we avoid, it actually widens that gap further. And so we don't necessarily want to avoid. There has to be a better way, and we will get into that in a moment. So avoidance is not the best coping mechanism, but it's what I see all the time. So number two, the second thing that I see people doing all the time is when they have these fears, they try to control. Again, anytime we have fear or worry or anxiety, our tendency is because we don't feel like we have control, we try to take on the control. And so what I see people doing all the time, they go into this mode where they're excessively researching, looking things up all the time, learning all the time, where it becomes so all-consuming. It feels like you're searching all the time. You're spending all your time being in pain, thinking about pain, how to get out of pain, and what treatments to try, right? I see folks doctor shopping, going from one doctor to the next. People tell me all the time, like, Alissa, I have had 50 different doctor visits and no one can tell me what's wrong with me. There's this hyper focus and hyper vigilance on trying to solve this problem, trying to search for the answer and trying to solve this problem. And we go into this mode of like, well, if I don't feel like I have control, then I'm going to try to control something that feels out of control, right? And I think what's unfortunate about this behavior is it doesn't necessarily directly make overactive pain pathways worse, but it can prevent us from focusing on the treatments that do address the overactive pain pathways. Because again, when you're searching all the time, you're going in 10 different directions. Like at any given time, the internet is probably throwing at you because of all the algorithms, all of these different ideas. Like you need to try this laser and you need to try this device that's going to activate your vagus nerve. And then you need to, do some sort of low back pain program to work on your alignment or your core strength or whatever. Like your flexibility isn't good enough. Your posture sucks. Like do this. And so like at any given time, there's like 100 different directions you can go in. And it becomes so overwhelming. And what happens is we get into that state of paralyzed with different options, too many different options. You're on information overload and it's just all too overwhelming. So you don't take action. And that's another thing that fear does is it prevents us from taking action because it's safer for us to stay in the situation you're in now than it is to take action, risk something, and then fail. So we don't take action. The third thing that I see people doing all the time when they have these fears is pushing through. It's this sort of mindset where it's like, well, if I'm going to be in pain anyway, I might as well just do it. If it's going to hurt anyway, I'm just going to do it anyway. And so we see these behaviors popping up where you're just pushing through pain. You're paying for it later. You're in this push and crash cycle. You're overcompensating. You're doing too much. You're people pleasing. You're saying like, you know what? it's going to hurt anyway, but I'm going to go to that social event and I'm just going to grin and bear it and do it anyway. Sometimes you can even like suppress your emotions around it and just stuff it all down and just not deal with it. And so obviously this can be its own toxic negative cycle where we're pushing through, but it does actually negatively impact the overactive pain pathways as well. Because again, every time we push through something, we're reinforcing those pain pathways. Okay. Nerves that fire together, wire together. I'll say that again. Nerves that fire together, wire together. So the more you reinforce the pattern, where let's say, for example, every time you go do the dishes, it causes pain, you're going to reinforce that pattern where doing the dishes equals pain. And your body can get so good at that pattern that it goes, oh, we're doing the dishes again. Okay, so let's create pain and just skip all the steps in between. It becomes a programmed response. And so your body learns to expect and create pain in these situations. And so it's reinforcing those pain pathways. And so what we need to do is we need to break out of that cycle. And so the question becomes, how do we do that? Right? How do we stop the tendency to over avoid? How do we stop the tendency to try to control? And how do we stop the tendency to push through it? Because these behaviors are not helping the situation, they're making the situation worse. So, how do we do that? And how do we interrupt this entire cycle as a whole? So, as I was thinking and sort of preparing for this episode, I was thinking, what is the opposite of fear? Right? What is the opposite of fear? And it kind of came down to, well, the opposite of fear is safety and confidence. In this case, specifically, safety and confidence, self confidence. And so, how do we create a sense of safety in the presence of so many unknowns and in the presence of so much uncertainty? Because chronic pain involves so much uncertainty. And I think what we now know is that wishing the fear away and trying to stuff it down and tell ourselves, like, you're safe and just try to mind over matter the situation, we know that it doesn't work and it's not good enough. Like, it can definitely help from masking the symptom sort of standpoint, but it's not good enough. We have to take it a step further because we're not just going to wish the fear away. You can't just fake the confidence. I know people say all the time, like, fake it till you make it, manifest, your future, and, wake up every morning and look in the mirror and tell yourself that you are beautiful and strong and resilient, da da da, and somehow that's going to fix your pain. I just don't see it happening because yes, there is a mindset component, but those mindset components are not going to necessarily change the overactive pain pathways themselves. So I think the real way that we create this sense of safety in the presence of so many unknowns and so much uncertainty is with 7 different steps, 7 different things. There's 7 different things that need to happen in order to create the sense of safety and to interrupt this cycle of pain and fear and overactive pain pathways. Number 1 is education and understanding. Getting a deeper understanding of what are overactive pain pathways and how are they contributing to my symptoms? How are they contributing to the pain that I feel? How is this all playing a role in my body? Because when you know more about what's going on in your body, you're going to feel more confident. You're going to be more empowered. You're going to take better steps. You're going to take more appropriate action because you know what the problem is. And it's not going to feel like when you don't fully know, you kind of just guess, right? Everything is a guess. We don't know if this is going to work. So we're just going to do it anyway and hope, fingers crossed, hope that it works. When you have a deeper understanding of what those overactive pain pathways are, you can take more informed action. So that is step 1. Step 2 is pacing, which sounds super boring. Nobody likes pacing themselves. And again, this is not like walking back and forth in your room. This is the happy middle ground between overdoing it and avoiding it. Pacing is pushing to it and not through it. This is how we break out of that push and crash cycle where we're reinforcing the pain pathways. And this is how we get out of that cycle of avoidance. What pacing does is it allows your body to experience the activities without that ongoing pain. Can you imagine what that does to not only the pain, but the fear? When we pace and when you're able to experience these different activities without the pain, the fear goes away. That is a beautiful thing. So pacing is very important. That's step 2. Step 3, and really I'm saying they're steps, but they're not in any particular order. So number 3, I should say, not step 3, number 3 is connection and support. Because again, part of this process of being in chronic pain leads people down this path of isolation where you're trying to figure it all out on your own. It's very lonely. People don't understand. So you feel so misunderstood and alone in this journey. You feel like a special snowflake, like some sort of a unicorn. There's no one else out there in the world like you. And you're trying to piece all of this together, and it is overwhelming. And so let me tell you right now, yes, you do need connection and you do need support. I will say that again. In fact, you deserve connection and you deserve support. You do not have to figure this all out on your own because it will take you twice, if not 10 times as long. Support is available for you. That is number 3. Number 4, you need a clear plan and you need the step-by-step process. Because again, if you're kind of scrambling, you've got all of these different pieces, but you don't know how to put them together, it's going to be really hard to get anywhere, right? It's going to be hard to address the fear and the pain and any piece of this and be successful and be consistent if you don't have the plan. Maybe you have all the pieces, but you don't know what order to do them in. Maybe you don't even have a single clue what the steps are and you're scrambling and you're going, should I get the laser? Do I need the grounding mat? What's the best concoction of different supplements that I need? Maybe you don't need any of that. Maybe there is a simpler way and you just need those steps laid out for you. Having those steps, and again, the connection and the support is going to create a sense of safety, right? Okay, what number are we on? Okay, so that was number 4. Number 5 is having predictability and a routine. Now, I'm sure you're tired of hearing about routines and like, your perfect morning routine and your bedtime routine and da 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 da. Like, but this is actually important because in a world when you have chronic pain, in this world, you have so much uncertainty. Your body is craving consistency, predictability. With so much uncertainty, your body has no clue what's going to happen next. And so it's going to create more fear. And so if you can give your body the sense of, hey, this is something predictable, it's one less thing for your body to worry about, right? So we want to have some predictable routines, some consistency in our day-to-day processes. Your body is craving it. I'm telling you right now, your body is craving that predictability. And when you have that, it will help create that sense of safety in your body. Okay. So then number 6, the 6th thing is having self-confidence. Confidence creates safety. Having confidence creates safety. Now, this again, I'm not saying it's like some sort of thing where we need to wake up in the morning, look in the mirror, and practice some mantras about like, I'm a great person, I love myself, da 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 da. Go and do that. That's great. What I'm saying here is you need to have the confidence that you can do things and it not flare up the pain. And that is not something that we just think our way into. That is something that we have to experience. In order to have the confidence that you are effectively making change in your body, you have to experience it. You cannot just generate this as some sort of wish and wishful thinking. Maybe some people can, I don't know. But for most of us, we can't just wish our way into feeling confident. You have to experience it. And when you experience that, when you experience doing the movement, the activity, the social event, the whatever, taking your kids on a road trip, and you experience that without the pain, that is what builds your confidence. You have to have those experiences to build your self-confidence. And building that self-confidence will, again, create the sense of safety in your body. Okay. And then number 7, the last way, again, in no particular order, last but not least, is consistency. Consistency is so important to build and create that sense of safety in your body. This is similar to what I said earlier about routines and having predictability, but consistency in this sense, I'm talking more about consistency of doing the same strategies, the same effective strategies on repeat. Because for a lot of these strategies, when we're addressing these overactive pain pathways, these are not things that are just going to do them for a week and then look at it and go, oh my God, I don't see any better. I'm not any better. It's just, it must not be working, and give up. You need to have consistency, because think about it. If you've been in pain for a long time, those pain pathways have been there for a long time. They're very strong. Nerves that fire together, wire together. So those pathways are really strong. And in order to break that down, we have to be consistent. We have to be consistent enough to build new pathways and then strengthen those pathways. Because the pain pathway is so well rehearsed, it's so automatic. So we do have to work to get past that. But the work doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be hard or scary, because you can have connection and support and you can have the clear steps. It can be easy. It does not have to be big, bad, or scary. So as we kind of wrap up today, what I want to say to you is that something that I've learned from working with hundreds, and I mean hundreds, of women with stubborn pain, persistent pain that has been around for far too long, what I've observed is that fear will always be there. The fear will always be there. We're not just going to wish the fear away. We're not going to do some sort of mind over matter like self-talk that's going to make that disappear. It is always going to be a part of this journey. And so we have to do a better job addressing it, recognizing those behaviors, the avoidance, the trying to control, and the overdoing it. We can recognize those behaviors when we're doing them, and we can address them in the moment and do a better job with that. And then we can take those steps to create that sense of safety, right? Education and understanding, pacing, connection and support, having a clear plan and a step-by-step plan, having predictability and a routine, having building that self-confidence and consistency. With those pieces on board, the fear will feel less. And when the fear is less, the pain is less. And not only that, we're not just addressing the symptom of fear or the symptom of pain, we're actually addressing the deeper cause, the overactive pain pathways. So again, this isn't a matter of just wishing the fear away. This is a matter of deciding that you will not let the fear control your decisions and your actions and your thoughts. This is you saying, the fear can just move over to the passenger seat. You get in the driver's seat. You take the keys. You grab that wheel and you put your foot on that pedal and say, I'm the one driving. The fear is not the one driving me. And so if you would like help with taking that kind of action to rebuild your self-confidence and get you a plan and get you some support, then I would encourage you to just set up a free call. This is a one-on-one call with me where we can just talk about what's going on with you, look at your pain history. That way I can tell you if it sounds like you have overactive pain pathways, and then we can make a plan together that will help you tackle your symptoms and have a lasting effect on your quality of life. So if that sounds good, go ahead and book your call. Otherwise, I hope you found this episode helpful, and I will see you in the next one.